Welcome, everyone. My name is Al Filreis, and I was going to say, by way of introduction, welcome to the Writers' House, but I'm going to put two in quotes. The Writers' House is hosting this event. We're thrilled to do it, but we're hosting it in so many different places. I guess the Writers' House is a symbol or a metaphor. This is the Blutt Singer-Songwriter Symposium, the nth year of it. I don't even want to try to remember how many years, but it's been just an absolutely fabulous series. Mitchell and Margot Blutt, you can see them here. They're spotlighted, Mitchell and Margot. We are so grateful to them. Some years ago, our friend Jean Marie Neely and the Blutts were talking about how they could make an impact at Penn and make music, music astride the curriculum, near the curriculum, outside the curriculum, part of the learning community at Penn. And they came up with the idea of endowing a singer-songwriter symposium. And we are so grateful that they decided to do it. And I think you may have had to miss one, Mitchell and Margot. Would you unmute them or unmute yourself so you can say hello? Hello, Mitchell.
Hi, Al.
Margot,
Hi.
thank you. So, did you want to say a word about why you started this or how you feel about it?
Margot? I think everyone will, if anyone doesn't know, they'll understand by the time we finish our session with Kathy Valentine.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much. If you're all muted, but you can snap, you can wave, and sometimes at summer camps they do this to indicate your gratitude to Mitchell and Margot. There you go. Come on, you're not doing it. We need more people doing it. Thank you so much. We love you guys, and we're so appreciative of your support. Mingo Reynolds has basically made this possible by coordinating it. I want to thank Mingo for her extraordinary work. Zach Gardner is doing, yes, and there's more of that for Mingo. Oh, there's Mingo being highlighted. Mingo's gone with the Singer-Songwriter Symposium music, pop music ambience there in the coloring of her theatrical room, her own green room. Thank you, Mingo, for your hard work. Allie Katz.
I was going to add a disco ball, but I couldn't do it.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll do that next year. Allie Katz has, as the program coordinator, has supported the project. And there's Allie. Thank you, Allie, for all that you do. She always loves this program. And some of you are used to Zoom, some aren't. If you go to the bottom, if you run your cursor over your screen, and you'll see chat as one of your options. And if you click chat, it'll open up the chat window, and you will see that Allie Katz has already and will continue to post a link to Kathy's book. It is bookshop.org, and you can get a copy of the book. And I know that Anthony and Kathy will be talking about the book. So I think this is more than subliminal advertising. I think Allie will continue to put that link out there so that you can, even while you're listening to this conversation, click the link and think about buying a copy of the book. And Margot is doing the audiobook version, and maybe Allie will have the wherewithal to put a link to the audiobook as well. Anthony DeCurtis is here, of course, as he has been for each of these annual programs, music critic, biographer, teacher, mentor to many students, someone who does more than teaching. He follows his students, many of whom enter careers in pop culture criticism and music, and he's just an extraordinary person. We are just so lucky that he's part of the scene of the Writers' House and the Center for Programs of Contemporary Writing. Is the faculty director of the Real Arts program, and as I mentioned, a distinguished member of the faculty of Penn's Creative Writing program, and a longtime partner and co-presenter of many Kelly Writers' House programs. Kathy Valentine both doesn't need introduction and will be introduced more properly than I will now by Anthony. We are just so grateful to Kathy for doing this. We're very tempted, Kathy, by the fact that there's so many guitars in view on your screen, and the cat. Is that a cat back there? I think it is, yeah. And so the format is very simple. Anthony and Kathy will, it'll be an interview conversation. And at a certain point, Anthony is very, very likely to gesture toward the audience. So if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat pretty much any time. And I believe Mingo is going to be curating those so that Anthony will be conveyed some of the questions and comments through Mingo at a certain point. And Anthony is so good at this, he'll signal to you that that's going to happen. Typically, I will show up again at the end and suggest by my mere presence that we're wrapping up, but we've decided to be relaxed about that. And when it feels right, we'll start talking about the end, and I won't reappear, and Anthony and Kathy will do the honors of ending the program. So it's now time, before we turn it over to Anthony, for you to do whatever praise thing you do in Zoom. I like this, but you can also just applaud for Kathy Valentine. Such an eminence, it's such a fantastic thing that you're here. So let's give it up for Kathy, please. Thank you. And for Anthony. Anthony, you're the best. Thank you, Anthony. It's all yours, pal. Take it over.
Well, thank you. That is great. This is the first one of these, we're doing on Zoom. So welcome to everyone. Some of you have probably been to earlier ones that we've done. And I couldn't be more delighted than to have Kathy Valentine here. I happen to have been a huge Go-Go's fan. I met Kathy for the first time. I'm not even sure we've discussed this, but I met Kathy for the first time when the first Go-Go's album came out, Beauty and the Beat. They were playing in Atlanta at a club called 688, and that's where I was living, and interviewed the band there. And I have to say, they made that club levitate that night. It was so much fun. Such a great show. Later on, my first visit to Los Angeles was to do a Go-Go's story. And, that was a tougher time. You could sort of feel some of the tensions that were going on with the band at that point. And happily, everyone has come through that well. The Go-Go's are, still, there was a Broadway show devoted to the Go-Go's just recently. There is a documentary on Showtime about the Go-Go's that's quite good. As Al pointed out, Kathy has written just a superb memoir called All I Ever Wanted. And, when I started thinking about, every year, we've had a variety of people, previously physically come down to Philadelphia. We had, Lou Reed was a guest, and Patti Smith, Graham Nash, Questlove, and all the time I'm always thinking, who would be good. I always think about a writing aspect to it, although obviously Kathy and those other people are songwriters as well. But when I read Kathy's memoir, I was just really floored by both its quality and its candor. Unlike many people, she did not use a co-writer. She wrote it herself. And her voice rings through so clearly, and it's a very compelling, powerful, and emotionally gripping story that I can't recommend highly enough, called All I Ever Wanted. So Kathy, so nice to see you again. I only wish it could be in person, but I wonder if you would, be willing to read, a passage from All I Ever Wanted for us, just to give, our audience an opportunity to get a sense for what your writing is like.
Sure, I'd be happy to. It'll stop me from toggling around gallery and speaker, trying to make up my mind how I want to view things. But since I'm reading, I think I'm going to go with the gallery view, so I feel like there's people in the room with me. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. And one day we have to, I remember that interview with you, Anthony, really, really well.
That's great.
I remember that. And I remember getting along, so that was kind of cool.
We did. We did. We certainly got along.
Yeah, we kind of hit it off. But then I didn't talk to you for like a zillion
30 years.
Oh my God, wow, he's the editor of this. Oh, wow, look at him go. But I think that just, I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to waste a bunch of time with that. So I'm going to read a section. I'm going to skip around a little bit just so I don't put all my everything in it and just stick to the point. But this is the prologue of the book. When I turned 21 at the beginning of 1980, Los Angeles had been my home for close to 2 years. I had moved from Austin, Texas with the single-minded purpose of making it in a band. My first band had broken up before we even booked a rehearsal room. Then I started the Textones with my best mate. 2 women guitar players from Texas fronting a band seemed promising at first, but after a while I started to feel we hadn't risen in the ranks or built a solid core of fans fast enough. I wasn't sure we would get there. Other people could move to LA and fret about not having what it takes, or end up watching their dreams stall out in the middle of the 405 freeway, but not me. I was ready to pick things up a notch. I just had to find the right band. I then write about going to the Whiskey A Go-Go on Sunset, where I meet a girl in a band that happens to be the Go-Go's, and they are up and coming. They're getting popular. I've been kind of floundering for a couple of months. So she, I can't see my highlighting. She approached me and said that they had a 4-night engagement at the Whiskey, 2 shows a night coming up in 5 days. Their bass player was sick. Did I by any chance play bass, and would I be interested in doing it? And I said, yes. I didn't even hesitate. Yes, I play the bass. So I'm going to pick up where she brings me over a rehearsal tape for me to learn the songs with the next morning. Charlotte dropped off the tape. Popping the Go-Go's into my cassette player, a basic cheap unit, I pressed the play button. It pushed a thin stream of muddled sound through the tiny speaker. She'd given me a rehearsal tape, probably recorded on a machine as primitive as the one I used. Before I could get a handle on what to do on the bass, I needed to work out the chord changes and learn the melodies. Making my way through the tape, one thing became clear through the distortion. The Go-Go's had some really good songs. So I then go on to some unsavory bits, just little things here and there. And I practiced for 3 days, and I must have played that tape hundreds of times. I didn't want to mess up one thing, not one note. The repetition committed the songs to memory. Finally, some bass lines came through. The ones I could sort out were good, and I kept them. I made up the other ones and hoped the band wouldn't notice. I then write about going to my first rehearsal and how intimidating it was to walk into a room of a band that had been together for a couple of years, being the outsider. I rehearse. When I got up the nerve to glance up, I saw looks being exchanged between the Go-Go's. They liked it. When it comes to playing music, feel is an indefinable thing. 2 musicians can play the exact same notes, but they're going to do it differently. Maybe the Go-Go's didn't even know why they liked the way it sounded or felt with me, but they knew it made a difference, and the difference was my feel, the way I played. Playing bass might have been new to me. It was an instrument I hadn't thought about before. Keith Richards had been my hero, not Bill Wyman. But what mattered was that I understood exactly what the Go-Go's should sound like. I knew when to swing, I knew when to drive, I knew what to listen for, and I had good timing. I then go to the very first gig and talk about what it was like for me. Sold Out, the Whiskey Marquee blared, red on white. Seeing it gave me a little electric buzz. I had never played a sold-out show in my life. Already, fans were hanging around the front door, forming a line. After sound check, we went to the dressing room. I heard a cheer from the crowd, magnifying the anticipation and excitement in the dressing room. As our time neared, Gina practiced furiously, her stick speeding through rudiments on a rubber pad. The rest of us paced, bounced on our feet, and made pretend scared faces at each other. Like that. It had already started to feel like my band. Walking on stage, it was hullabaloo. A collective ardor had energy rising like vapors off the crowd. There were only 500 people in the club, but they had double the power. Everyone crammed together for a single purpose. They were here to experience the magic of music from a band intent on escape and simple fun. I told myself to focus, get set up, strap on your instrument, be cool, be calm, but feel this, because you have never felt this before. It was an approval so absolute and certain that nothing could stop it crashing toward the stage. This right then, right there, was the reason I had come to LA, why I'd started bands, why I'd picked up a guitar and learned to play. Now I got to experience the part that had ever been missing. People loved this band. Playing those songs, making that crowd happy, it was the best time I had ever had on a stage or as a musician. I could hardly believe I would get to do it again later for the second show and for 3 nights after. I get so emotional. I'm sorry. I'm such a sap.
Not at all. God, but the fact that you did, I mean, the passages in your book talking about being in a band, just that, I mean, it sounds so obvious, but they're, if you, like music and you're around that world, I mean, obviously, I'm a writer, but, being around bands a lot, you just really get a feel for what that is. And boy, does that really come through in your book, when it's happening and, when the Go-Go's are really feeling it, and the sense of your rise when that first record is just beginning to take off, you really capture what all the power of that is and how the excitement of it. I wonder if you could just, just kind of recollect a little bit. There was a sense, I mean, the Go-Go's, I mean, at this point, it's certainly obvious, just how historically significant the Go-Go's are. But, at that point, I don't know, I mean, how aware were you of that? And how much were you just kind of swept up in the moment of all that was happening for you?
Well, a lot of people, I've done a lot of press and interviews about the book, and so many people have said, focused on the success as when I felt like it was happening. And what I keep bringing up is that for me, every stage of it was this insane manifestation of a huge dream. Like at the beginning, finding a band I loved, they were females. I wanted to play with women. I wanted to play with people my age. I hadn't successfully really found that kind of sisterhood and that family that I longed for. So just that in of itself, plus I love the band. So then you add on top of that, they're popular, people love the band. And then, okay, that's, but then I find out when I joined that we get $40 a week and our rent paid. So, I mean, to me, that was the peak of success at 21 years old, to have my rent paid and get $40. What else did I need? And from that moment on, it just kept accruing. I called them pinnacles of success. So then we get a record deal. Okay, my mind is blown. Oh my God, we're making the record in New York City. So then it's like I'm in New York City, staying in a hotel. I mean, I still get excited about staying in a hotel. So you can imagine being 21 and like living in a hotel for almost 2 months. I mean, who gets to do that?
New York.
So we're in the Wellington Hotel. I still, every time I walk by it in New York City, I'm just like, that it all comes rushing back. And I'm just going to interject here. Writing this book was just, oh my God, it was just the most wonderful thing. Because just like I got emotional when I was reading it, that's how I felt when I was writing it. I really tried to not write until I was right in that moment of what I was writing about and really feeling it. I just desperately wanted how it felt to get onto the page. And one of the ways to do that was to be feeling it rather than remembering it, or describing it. I wanted to feel it. And it was such a big deal, and so intense. It wasn't that hard with music and just different ways I could put myself in that spot. But then we go from making the album to we get to go on tour. So I'm going on. So you see what I'm saying? Like each thing, by the time we got to having a #1 record, or to having a record that was selling before that point, I was already successful in my mind. I was successful way back when I found the band. So I was always grateful. I didn't like when, as in later years, when we would do something and somebody kind of sounded ungrateful, because that I didn't like being lumped, because I was always very grateful, very aware of how few bands got to achieve that. And the double-sided sword of that, which we could go into later or not, was that I became very obsessed with keeping it. Like, it was just like, it was such an abundance of wonderful blessing, dream come true. All I ever wanted, my sense of sisterhood and family and achievement. And I mean, it just clicked off every box you could possibly want clicked off, you know?
The one of the things, I mean, let me say first that, that your aim of getting that on the page succeeded completely. But, talking about just deciding to write a book, I wonder if you could, discuss that decision, not a small one. And also, something that we haven't mentioned yet was that you put out an album to accompany this book. Songs, is kind of based on, the very same life that you've lived and that you describe in the book. So it has this kind of, this kind of, double quality, but also, I mean, that's quite a task to set for yourself. And I wonder if you could, talk about, how your thinking about all that went.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm a very practical creative, and I'm a strategist. And I thought, when it comes to, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with the soundtrack, and I call it a soundtrack. One of the things I started thinking was like, what can I do that other writers can't do? What can I do? And I thought, well, I can write music and I can write songs. Not every author can do that. So I became interested for that reason, kind of like just to set my book apart. But as I got into the writing of the soundtrack, I just found it to be the most, for one thing, I was missing music. I wrote the book for 3 years, and I was really missing making music. For another thing, one of the things that takes me the longest with music is thinking of ideas and song titles and what I want the song to be about. So I had an entire book to draw from, which was awesome. And a lot of my titles, chapter titles, to me sounded like song titles. And I didn't have any real like method. I just kind of, I did a little roadmap because I wanted the album to cover from the beginning to the end, but I didn't want it to be too long. Anyway, so some titles just kind of stuck out to me as song titles. And the interesting thing was, though, how much more emotion writing the music pulled out. Like, there's a chapter, I think it's chapter 3, called Just Do It, where I describe a very unpleasant situation. I don't know how far I should go into this stuff, but it was dark and it wasn't good. And pulling it out and putting it on the page was one level, but writing the music, I mourned and grieved for 3 days. Just as soon as it was like the music took it and pulled it deeper out of wherever I had compartmentalized it. So it was an amazing experience, and the freedom of it too, the freedom of just, because it's a soundtrack, I can do whatever I want. I can make a beat and then just put some like crazy bass line, and then I can read something. And I didn't ever read straight out of the book. I would take the stuff and make it more lyrical, or I could do guitar stuff, or I could make it pop sounding, or I could make it sound kind of country-ish, which I'm going to do a song for you guys that's like that. So that was all that. That was amazing. And then as far as writing the book, again, I really wanted to expand on my career. You know, I've been a musician. I've been in bands for 45 years. And, you know, that's a long time to be in a band. And I really that's who I am at my core, as a working musician. At the same time, it's really not enough to just sustain me. And I've been doing writing, you know, everywhere from social media writing to classes I'd taken, that I felt confident in my abilities as a writer. I felt that I had a voice, as they say, but I wasn't sure that people would like take me seriously if I released a collection or I tried to publish a collection of short stories or some literary novel or something. I just wasn't sure. And I thought, well, memoir is the story that only I can write. This is the story that there's no competition. It's just, you know, and it felt like a good place. So that was the strategizing practical part of me. It was like going, okay, do a memoir. Plus I'd read enough to make me think, I got a story to tell. I've got a good story too. And you didn't ask me this, but I love to just give credit. My Bibles were Just Kids and Chronicles. Those were the books I really felt like if I just aimed in that direction, even if I fell short, I would fall short in the direction that I wanted to go.
Just for anyone who might not know, Just Kids, of course, is Patti Smith's memoir, and Chronicles is Bob Dylan's whatever phantasmagoric memoir. I wonder, you know, we'd love to hear a song.
Oh, cool. I would love to play a song. Because I'm new at this, I don't know whether to sit down or stand up. So I think I'm gonna just start with sitting, if that's okay with you guys. But I'd like you to see the guitar when I play. Well, maybe I'll stand. No, I lost the strap. All right, I'll push back so you guys can see. Now this is a song, it's called Next to Merle, and it's from the chapter where I talk about seeing my dad. Now my dad was not in my life a lot. He really had nothing to do with me, yet he felt like he could judge and criticize my choice for wanting to be a musician. And well, I'll let the song explain it. It's about being on the road. We're very successful by this time, and I'm going back and I'm playing my hometown. I'm playing my hometown in, sorry, I don't want to see me while I do this. I'm playing my hometown of Austin, and then oddly enough, I'm going to Oklahoma to see my dad and play, and there my dad comes. On the road, headed for my hometown, back in Texas, yeah. I'm going back where I'm from. Been in a van for 6 weeks straight. We got a tour bus, my work is play. It's one long escape for a troubled girl like me. We hit the show, I couldn't find a groove, but an all-night bender with strangers could help me lose my blues. I saw my mama and I'm seeing my dad in Oklahoma. It's been 5 years since we were together, but he just told me he was proud of me. He put my record next to Merle's. So the reason that's a big deal is that my dad was a huge Merle Haggard fan. High praise, that's a place any player's gonna feel so flattered. G is for Go-Go's, H is for Haggard. It's alphabetical, but still I know I matter. I only asked for one thing in a letter. I was 16. I wanted a guitar and an amp to help me find my way through the world. He said, that's a lost cause and a waste of time. It'll take you nowhere, girl, but there I was, I'd ended up fine. But this is the thing. After he said that to me, got out on the bus after the show, and the bus is where the party went after a concert. But that night, it was like I realized for the first time what I had missed out on, what it was like to be a little girl making her dad proud. Never known what that felt like. So I was in my bunk 'cause I was daddy's girl. But then I made him proud. He put my record next to Merle. Woo! Oh, I'm crying in my bunk 'cause I was never daddy's girl. But then I made him proud. He put my record next to Merle's.
That was wonderful.
Does it work? Can you hear it okay?
We
Like
could
this?
hear it. Yeah, the usual, I mean, Zoom issues, but we could hear it fine.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. Oh, well.
Well, one of the things, with the book also is that there is an incredible, just your discussion of your relationship with your father. One of the other powerful things in the book is your discussion of your relationship with your mother, where, at one point, I mean, there almost is this kind of like competition between you. Like it seemed as if, she was somebody you describe her as a babe, and there's somebody who was kind of like holding on to her own youth, and through your own sort of adventures, which you went on, and grappling, dealing with all this stuff, in a book. I mean, I remembered the moment in. I can't remember if this is in the book itself or if I heard it in an interview that you did. But like your own daughter was like reading the book and she said to you, why do you want people to know all this stuff? And I wonder, where you felt. I think, obviously, it's a writing program. There are a lot of people who've written actual memoirs and then aspiring memoir writers. I wonder if you could talk about, struggling with this, what you reveal, what you keep to yourself, and you're just kind of negotiating that whole process and and achieving a high level of candor while doing it.
Sure. It was probably the most challenging part of writing the book. I talked to my mom about everything that I included because I felt like my story was intact and compelling without any of the stuff that I put. Like if she'd said, oh no, please don't put that, I felt confident that I could leave anything out and it would still be a compelling, good story. It had the elements, it had the story arc, the arc was not going to be affected by anything. But my mom, and I don't know if I would characterize it as a competition. I don't know if she was so unaware of how beautiful she was. And she was just she's such a unique person. And the book, I have to say, we are closer now than we've ever. It was very healing. And it really gave me a way to process, to be in that perspective where I'm a mom. Sometimes while I'm writing the book, I'm writing about me being 15 and I have a 15-year-old, and I'm these lenses of my mom and not parenting me and not giving me boundaries and me being a mom with my daughter. And it was really an interesting experience to go through that. But I will say that the processing of it allowed me to see what I was missing, but also what wasn't missing. And my mom was so supportive. I mean, and anybody that's a parent is or has parents to know that there's big pillars of parenting, and one of them is support and valuing your kid, and it can take different shapes. And my mom took everything seriously. Like my dad was like, when I asked him to get me, the one thing I ever asked him for was if I could get some money to buy a guitar and an amp, and he shot it down and said it was a waste of time. If my mom had had the money, she would have bought it for me the next day. I mean, that's how she was. When I was a kid, I was enamored of Bewitched, and I wanted to be an advertising woman like Larry Tate. I wanted to be Larry Tate for some reason. I was a weird kid. And I wrote commercials, and my mom sent them off to the companies. I mean, she always was supporting me. So that's a long-winded way of saying that she said, you write whatever you need to write to make this book the way you want it to be. And she was so brave to let me do that, because I felt like I needed to say what this was. Otherwise, nobody was going to get how important and profoundly, deeply the longing I had for that, being to belong and to feel a family. I didn't feel like I had a family. I didn't put this in the book, but one time I came home from school and I said to my mom, what's a family? I asked her what a family was. And she's like, well, we are. And I was like, no, we're not. So there was this long, if I didn't put the stuff about my mom, I don't think I would have had the context that would have shown how important it was to me. And when it came to other people, the band, I didn't want to tell anybody a story other than mine. I wanted to be very careful about not revealing anything that either, that was somebody else's story. So if it had been mentioned in another interview, or if Belinda wrote about it in her book, or if it had behind the music or anything, I felt like it was fair game for me to write about. But I still tried to keep everything from my point of view. And I thought my mom was very, very brave, and I ended up giving her a dedication in the book for letting me write that stuff, because I didn't really know at the time. That's all I knew. All I knew was what it was. And it wasn't until much later, and I think when, sobriety and stuff, that I started thinking, this is whack, this stuff was just like, this was missing in action. And then, like, it was crazy. But that's at the same time. And my mom, when she read the book, she's like, I thought I did a really good job. I was so sad. And I just hugged her and I said, Mom, without you, my book would have been really boring. So I said, thank you for being the kind of mom you are, because it really puts some compelling stuff. And the things that happened, they happened to me. A lot of the reasons they happened to me was because I had no boundaries or parenting. When you toss a 10, 11, 12-year-old out into the world to make their own way, and my sense from the earliest childhood of my earliest child was that my job was to take care of myself. That's what I thought. And that's how that has formed me for my entire life. It's my job to take care. It took a very long time before I would ask for help, be vulnerable, let people know I was in trouble, a very long time, because it was ingrained in me that it's my job to take care of me.
You briefly alluded before to the way the Go-Go's had become a kind of substitute family. And another compelling section of the book is when things begin to go sideways in the Go-Go's, over the kind of things that trouble so many bands, who gets the songwriting credit, and, who's the front person, and how much attention are they getting, and where's the money going, and, how that all plays out. And that, it's a painful part, because you can feel your desire to hold on to that. And I wonder if you could, just kind of talk about that moment in the band's history, that, when things were beginning to shake that way, and, you're called to a meeting at the new manager's office and are presented with information that, surprised you.
Yeah, it's a band is like a relationship, and it's like a marriage, really. Especially once you get in deep like that, and so anyone can imagine how difficult it is to be married to four people, especially four kind of immature, undeveloped people. So here we are, these basically 5 teenagers married. That's where my emotional maturity was, and I became very, very fixated on keeping what we had, because the band represented belonging. It represented being able to take care of myself, the security I'd ever felt in my life, security in terms of financial, being able to pay bills. And now I was taking care of my mom. And I felt like that was my job, care of her. So I was very, and plus, like I said earlier, I was really aware that not very many bands get to that level of success. So I was just so fixated on keeping it together. And if you transfer that to like a relationship, imagine being in a relationship with someone that all they are is obsessed with keeping you, you know, and like the minute you look unhappy, they're like, what's wrong? What can I do? What can I do? How can I make you happy? That was how I was. It was like I became this person, like, you know, trying to fix everyone or be in denial that anyone was in trouble or having problems. So I was so like that and so afraid of losing it. And fear is just a fearful motivation isn't a good place to be in a relationship. So that was my contribution, I think. And I don't blame, you know, what's always written about the Go-Go's is how ego, it just gets summed up tidily, like, oh, it was ego and it was money and it was drugs and alcohol. And I'm not saying that those things didn't play a very big part, but I really think the big overarching umbrella was that we were not fully developed people. We didn't know how to be compassionate. We didn't know how to communicate. All the things that you know how to do so well, hopefully, when you hit your 30s and 40s, and, you know, some of us are just naturally that way, others figure it out. So we didn't have any of that stuff. So by the time the band broke up, I mean, it started when Jane left. And when Jane left the band, I mean, I was terrified. I just thought, you know, this is Charlotte's main writing partner. She's like the most visible one besides Belinda. She was the one that, she seemed to be kind of like just the secondary main go-go. And to me, it was like, oh my God, this is terrible. And rather than accept that though, because if that meant I was just like, okay, new blood, got to move forward, new chapter. Maybe, you know, I just constantly had to keep fixing things, I guess. It was uncomfortable. And a lot of it I didn't even really see until I wrote the book. You know, when you write, patterns come out.
Yes.
I overwrote. I try to always overwrite, because for me, it's a lot easier to shape and get rid of
Revise,
stuff than it is to
edit,
generate. You know, the generating of a page is much harder to me than slashing it out. So I slashed out 100 pages, you know, with the help of an editor. I saw a lot of patterns, and one of them was my big part in it. And even though I wasn't on the outside, you would just think, well, what's she doing wrong? She's just trying to make the band stay together. But what I saw was just that desperation and that fear, and not good. It's not a good, no, but it's not very fun. Bands are supposed to be fun, you know? So you're in a band with someone that's desperately afraid to just keep it going. And so, and the irony is that my big role in the band was the fun one, the prankster, the clown. Oh, so here's, you got the sad, desperate, fearful clown, you know? So that should have been on the soundtrack, sad, desperate, fearful clown.
Well, speaking of the soundtrack, I wonder if we could hear another song.
Oh, absolutely. Where did I put my pick? So this song, when I was 19, I went to Austin to visit my mom, and I ended up having a fling, and it was really the first time in my life that I felt like a boy liked me and cared about me. And we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, but I had a really nice time, and I was reflecting it on the plane. And I wrote on the airplane napkins a bunch of lyrics, and I got home and I put music to them. And when the Go-Go's decided to start our second album, there wasn't a lot of material. So I showed them this song and said, do you think this could be a Go-Go song? And it sure ended up being a Go-Go song. Back here at home, there's nothing to do. Now that I'm away, I wish I'd stay. Tomorrow's a day of mine that you won't be in. When I looked at you, I should have run. But I thought it was just for fun. Now that I'm gone, I see I was wrong. I should have known all along that time would tell. A week without you, thought I'd forget. 2 weeks without you, and I still haven't gotten over yet. Vacation, all I ever wanted. Vacation, had to get away. Vacation, meant to be spent alone. Vacation, all I ever wanted. Vacation, had to get away. Vacation, meant to be spent alone. A week without you, thought I'd forget. 2 weeks without you, and I still haven't gotten over yet. Vacation, all I ever wanted. Vacation, had to get away. Vacation, meant to be spent alone. Vacation, all I ever wanted. Vacation, had to get away. Vacation, meant to be spent alone. Vacation, all I ever wanted. Vacation, had to get away. Vacation, meant to be spent alone.
Thank you, Kathy. That was lovely. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
You know, there's one thing that comes across in the documentary. I think I'm going to turn a light on in this room. I'm beginning to seem a little spooked out here. Hang on one second. Getting very dark.
I'm going to read comments while you do that.
I think we're getting questions, and we can in a minute move to that portion of the program.
Yeah, I love seeing what, because that feels like a community. Like after a Zoom, I always love reading the chats because I'm like, oh, there was people like interacting and stuff. It's cool.
You know, one of the things that comes through again in the documentary is, you know, you all seem to be enjoying each other again. I mean, obviously, you know, there were breakups and lawsuits and issues, but at this point, it seems like there's so much, you know, there's a lot of recognition of the Go-Go's. You know, you've all kind of, you know, I think grown in your appreciation for each other. And I wonder if you could talk about the sense of, you know, feeling among, you know, the group members at this stage of the game, and, you know, how you all see things.
Sure. Well, I think it's worth noting that when I started this book, I was out of the band. One of the ugliest periods of our dysfunctional toxicity was me getting kicked out basically, and having to sue to protect my stake and financial rights for what I'd worked for 35 years. And it was really awful. It was the worst thing I'd ever been through. Like anything, it'll be my second book, maybe not my second, but my second memoir. My second book will not be a memoir, but it'll be in my follow-up, because the bad things, the lessons that you learn from them, the silver linings are just amazing. But anyway, not to digress. So I'm out of the band. So I was like, what's it going to be like to write about this band when I feel so betrayed and so done wrong and treated so horribly and unfairly? And what I found was that I found a release. I found a way. It healed me, because I thought, I'm not going to I thought it's not personal. This was a collective dysfunction that would have landed on somebody, and it just happened to me. I had seen it go, and I'd seen it land on different places. So I stopped taking it personally, and I just started thinking, I don't want that to overtake and demolish and erase the joy that this band was to me. And so it was very healing. And by the time I got back in the band, when the musical came out, I was asked to return to the band. They saw the error of their ways. And a lot of people were like, how do you move on? How do you forgive? And this and that. And I always say, number one, I had healed and I had processed, and I love the band. I wanted to be in the band. So that's number one, but also it just feels better. I'm a survival, self-preservation, looking out for me. And what is good for me is to not hold grudges, not to be swimming in resentment, and to let go, because these people nobody went through this other than us five. So that brings me to, about a year and a half after I was back in the band, we get approached to do the documentary. And I thought that it couldn't, after what had happened to me and what we had kind of, the apologies and the forgiveness that had happened after that, I didn't know that there was more left. But the documentary really took it deeper. Like, we still had healing to do. We still had things to process. And I have to say, right now, it's kind of a sad thing that we're not a really functioning, working band, because it feels more now like it did at the very beginning. Life is such that it's complicated. People live all over the globe and have full lives with families and other careers and things that are important to them. And I don't know that the Go-Go's will ever be, well, I don't think we will ever be doing that. Oh, let's make a bunch of albums and go on a bunch of tours. That's just not going to happen. And personally, I had to let go a long time ago of this band not being the band I wanted it to be, and just accepting that what it was. I mean, I wanted to be in a band like the Stones, or even now like U2, or just a band that just stays together they just stay together, and yeah, they might release a dud album, but then they come back and it's great, and then I don't like that phase, but you just keep doing it. So I wanted it to be that kind of band, and I had to accept the Go-Go's are not that band, and that it just isn't what it is. But on personal level, the documentary, we screened it at Sundance in January of this year, and afterwards we went up to the front for a Q&A, and we just fell into each other's arms. And again, it makes me choked up to think about it, because just to feel those feelings of just break away. It's like a chunk of ice off an iceberg, just break away and float off. And so it's really nice.
Well, you guys are set up to do a tour this summer, no? Or
yeah, we were going to do a tour to help support the documentary, and we've done a few little things here and there, but it's just really hard. I mean, a band is really about everybody going for the same thing. That's what a band is. A band is you need to be a solo artist if you're the only one pushing things forward. So it's just way too frustrating to try to make people want to be excited about things, and I see it happen all the time. Somebody will get an idea like, oh, why don't we do this? And it's like, I see the and it's like, but the thing is, I still think that without that activity, without that current constant progress, I still believe that there was something magical that we created and that we have that is worthwhile of notice and attention, and I'm not going to say relevance, because I don't know if relevance is even matters when you're in your 60s, but it's important. We still inspire people. The music holds up. The music is classic. I see when we do tour, I see what it does. It does what music can do, and we do it really well, and it uplifts people, and it takes them out of their lives for a moment, and it either takes them back to a time, or it takes them out of where they are and just enjoying a moment of joy. And it's such a privilege and a gift to be able to bring that to people, and I really, I mean, like I said, I'm a musician, which means I love playing in a band, and that means most of the time I'm not in the Go-Go's, but I still put my amp in the car, go down, play at the Continental Club or wherever in Austin, and I have a fantastic time. I have a fantastic time getting in the fancy hotel and playing the big place with the Go-Go's where everybody loves you and knows who you are. I just enjoy it. I'm very much in the moment, and it's such a gift with the Go-Go's because you are reaching many people.
I mean, I think, that point you made about relevance. I mean, I think, this moment, for a band of all women, who had the success that you had and broke the boundaries. I mean, that's, I think, extremely relevant. So,
yeah.
So it's good that, I mean, I think that's part of what has thankfully brought attention back to what you all did. I mean, it was, it was so exciting at the time. I mean, from the outside, that its historical input would only I think become clearer later, but it's clear now for sure.
I get my favorite thing is, number one, like the wide, like at the time, it didn't feel like, I don't know, it felt like a narrow audience, but I've heard from country artists, I've heard from hip hop artists, I've heard from people that you wouldn't think of, like guys in like hard rock or metal bands that just said they loved the Go-Go's. And it's just like, it's amazing to me how many people this band resonated with. And still, I mean, I don't look like I used to look, and I wasn't the most high profile person, but I mean, just a few months ago, I was approached by somebody in a Greek cafe. Just a guy walked up and he said, "I just have to say thank you. I saw the Go-Go's when I was growing up in the middle of the country, and there was something about you that made me think anything was possible with my life. And what I pursued and what I've succeeded at is the feeling that I got from seeing you." And that is like, when you know that you've affected someone's life and changed their life, it's just, what else could you want with your art,
Absolutely. Well, let's take some questions. We've got a few. This one's from Matthew. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for participating. You have the best swagger in your bass playing, and I always felt it was a driving and key force in the sound of the Go-Go's. How did you develop your signature playing style, and do you ever see your influence in other musicians?
I think I play a lot like how bassists who started on guitar play. So I think coming from a guitar background has something to do with it. I think because the Go-Go's didn't have a lot of like riffing and stuff going on, it was easy I'm a really musical person. So a lot of times when I'm writing a song, I hear, and I have to go, is that a bass part, or is that a harmony, or is that a hook for the guitar? Or it's like, so it's just a matter of putting the things there. So in the Go-Go's, I was able to kind of put melodic bass lines in. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And I have had people, there was in the musical of, it was Heels on Broadway, they put together a female band to play the music, and they were behind, like nobody knew until the set raised at the end, and you saw, and it was all these like New York City studio women musicians, like heavy duty, like that. I mean, I don't even know what their credits are, but they're like musicians, not like us. And the bass player came up to me and said, I never had any idea like how insanely great your bass parts are until I had to learn them for this.
That's
So
so,
yeah, it's kind of cool to hear when like a professional says that. But yeah, I think, and I'm gonna say also being from Texas. I mean, I grew up with the most amazing music background any young musician could want. I mean, from the age of 15, I'm going to clubs and I'm seeing the fabulous Thunderbirds, Barry Vaughan and Doug Somm and I mean, John Lee Hooker. I mean, I saw everybody, and it was a very open scene in Austin. And, it wasn't like, oh, you could only go to the country band or this. And I write about a lot in my book about how important that music was. So I think, as you say, swagger, I think that's part of my swagger because I'm from Texas and I just absorbed all those influences. And I can, like I said in my prologue, I could hear when a song needed to swing. I knew when it needed to be more like Dee Dee Ramone or when it needed something else. So thank you for the compliment.
what I particularly like about what that musician said to you is that, I love like the part didn't like stand out like, oh, this is crazy, but then try to play it. Like what that musician said to you, that, how great the parts are, like that they don't, call attention to themselves, but they're really good.
Yeah. And another interesting thing is like later on when we got back together and we're playing in the 90s and stuff, later I decided to go back to guitar and I'd gotten very good on my instrument. Like I thought, well, that's my message now that I like to give people is never too late. I started putting my focus on guitar playing in my music and I got quite proficient and then go back to be a bass player in the Go-Go's. And I would try to put some of my newfound musicianship into my bass parts and like heads were just like whipping around that I had tried something different. And at the time I remember being really frustrated and like, oh, they're holding me back and like being all annoyed. But then I just started thinking, no, it's you don't fix what's this isn't my job as a bass player to show off, or oh, look how good I've gotten, so it's just, I mean, you're always growing and learning things like that. So I pretty much stick to the original parts.
This is a question that, I think we've touched on some of this, but it's important. This is from Elise, and it says, Kathy, you're amazing. Why was it important for you to be in an all-female band? What unique challenges did you face in an all-female band?
I've wondered that myself, and I think at the beginning, to be honest, I think that the very beginning, it was because what guys would want to play with me. It was 1973. I was 15 years old, 1974. I'd seen Suzi Quatro play, and I came back to Austin. And I felt like I wanted to see women, like all the bands I loved, the Faces and the Who and the Stones and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and ZZ Top, all the bands I loved were men. And I was just like, where's the women? Where are they? And I wanted to fill, because I had this ambition to do something kind of extraordinary. I mean, when I wanted to be a scientist, I didn't want to be just a scientist. I wanted to be the scientist that discovered the cure to every disease. It was like, I just wanted to do something special. So I think I thought with women, that's how I would do it. Like, I'm going to be in a band that gets up there with all those guys. And my first goal was to be a guitarist that was up there with, I mean, it sounds silly now, but in my mind, I wanted to be like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Kathy Valentine. I mean, that's really what my dream was. And it started altering and shifting with punk rock and the opportunities that came my way. But that was my original intent, was to get women up into the pantheon of the gods.
Well, one of the nice things about the book is, the points at which, you talk about, like, there were, that male musicians were actually, for the most part, pretty encouraging. Like when you were touring in England with the Specials and, like how much fun all that was. And, when Sting and, brought out a bottle of champagne when you guys went to #1 and you were on tour with the Police. And, meeting Keith Richards, who tells you, yeah, well, you're a member of the union, or whatever he said to you when you were in the studio and wanted to like hear some Stones tracks and stuff. It was, you know, it was good to hear actually that there wasn't, on that level at least, you know, any kind of hostility, that you were kind of welcomed.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, that was a pattern that rose when I was writing. I just started seeing from the very early days of my becoming a musician how musicians had been so supportive and so encouraging. And I think a lot of it was that they sensed that I was the real thing. You know, I wasn't pretending so that I could hang out with them. It was the real thing. And, you know, when a lot of times when I would meet a guitar player or a guy, I would just say, show me something on the guitar. You know, that was what I wanted. Show me something on the guitar. I even did that with Keith, like in the 90s, I got to meet him for a second time. And I said, show me something on the guitar. And it was like one of my more memorable, fun things. But yeah, the sexism that we encountered, and to go back to that question a bit, the difficulties, I didn't really find any difficulties until I was in the Go-Go's and we tried to get a record deal, number one, and we were told, you know, by everybody that there's not been a successful female band. So that was a problem. And then the resistance from radio. So nobody wanted to play our record. You know, it took us 9 months to push our first single into the top 20, top 30. It wasn't even top 20, top 30. 9 months to get Our Lips Are Sealed into the top 30, and then it fell off. And so and that was because of radio. It wasn't because we weren't working. We were playing night after night. We were showing up to their stations. We were working really, really hard, and our record company was working really, really hard. But the gatekeepers, who were guys, there was no female program directors.
Sure.
They went at us.
Well, one other question here. This is about inspiration, particularly musical inspiration. This is from Kayla, a former student of mine. It says, do you ever go through a hiatus because you feel a lack of musical inspiration? If so, how do you get your musical inspiration motivation back on track?
Well, I like to think of it like my antenna are always out. It's like I'm always looking for something that would spark I mean, the iPhone, I don't know what I did before an iPhone, because my voice memo has about 500 little snippets of songs. And I actually do sometimes just randomly pick a section and listen to those little snippets and go, oh, this is cool. So I could be in my car, any place. So, and it's not just musical ideas. Sometimes it's a phrase. I'm funny in that I like to have a title. I didn't have a title for my book for half of writing it. It was driving me crazy because I don't even like to write a song without having a title. It just gives me like a beacon that
Exactly.
it feels like the thing. It just feels like, and so I had a list of titles and all I ever wanted was on it, but I hadn't decided on anything. And so so if I think of a title, I always write that down. And sometimes it's just, and yes, to the beginning of your question, absolutely. Sometimes I think you just have to fill up. You just have to fill up. And sometimes you're just depleted. And yet sometimes inspiration doesn't happen. And I see this more as and the lessons go back and forth. They're very fluid between prose and songwriting. And like as a songwriter, it really helped me as a writer because I thought of things in a lyrical way. I remember the first time an editor looked at my work of the book, that I gave them 10 chapters, and they didn't even want that. They wanted the entire draft. And I was like, I'm not going to do an entire draft wrong, you know, and I forced like 10 chapters.
No, yeah.
And they were like crossing things out, like, oh, you just said that. Because I had a habit of ending a paragraph with a phrase and then picking that phrase up again at the next paragraph. And they're like, oh, no, you just did that like a mistake. And I'm like, no, that's like a song. It's a good line. You do it again. You know,
Exactly.
you don't just do it once if you have a good line, if you have a hook. So, but the fluidity is like, I learned from writing the book that sometimes there's no inspiration and you just put a bunch of stuff on the page. And when I was writing songs, I didn't ever do it like that. I would painstakingly get each line and would get stuck if I didn't have the perfect line. And sometimes I would just do it incrementally, just write one line, just get that one line. And so now I can go to songwriting the same way I learned to do with writing a book, which is sometimes you just spew a bunch out, and then it's hard. It's a hard lesson I'm a perfectionist, so it's hard to, I would just sit there like getting the perfect word and line, and it was just too slow. So now I've learned to not be a perfectionist and just write a bunch of crap. And it's surprising how much in that crap there's a little nugget of goodness.
That's absolutely true.
I think it's John Cage that says, right, just begin anywhere. That was a mantra too for me.
That is all good advice to any aspiring writers out there. Well, before we, and this has been fantastic, Kathy, and I wonder, would you play one more song for us?
I will. I just want my daughter to, can you all hold on one second?
Yeah, sure.
Because he's going crazy. Please feed Tux. Sorry, you guys. Life in the household goes on when you're on Zoom, doesn't it?
We're all living it.
This song I wrote about, so a big part of my story is sobriety, which is the foundation for me becoming not an emotionally stunted 16-year-old, and where I am grateful. I mean, that's the foundation for why I'm a mom and why I'm a good mom and why I have a daughter and why I was able to write a book and why I can still, everything is about sobriety. And when I first got sober, the book that I wrote hideous songs, they were just so horrible. But, and I kind of put that aside, but I wrote a song about sobriety that isn't hideous. And it's kind of more the edgy side of it. And it's called Hourglass. It's not one thing if it's salvage enough of myself to recover, live to tell I got a new complex, still holding up under duress, put on a dress, dance and twirl, too far gone to be on top of this world, walk into laws, or lie or confess, I got my eye on the prize, love and happiness, got my eye on the prize, love and happiness, this one will pass, this one won't last, turn it over, start again, hourglass, turn it over, start again, hourglass. Came out of the hole I dug myself in, kicked out the freeloaders, grew some new skin. Couldn't have wished for more guts and glory, sitting in a circle selling war stories. Big smile, high five, lost my place in line, got no peace of mind. Bed of roses, bed of nails, turn it over, start again, hourglass. Turn it over, start again, hourglass. A brand new sun has been discovered. If I stay the same, my days are numbered. Left for a minute to get some self-help. Fell up the steps and back down again. With a pat on the back, picking over the scraps. Got a ticket to ride in my works. Forgive the fools, forget the rest. Forgive the fools, forget the rest. It's elemental, transcendental. We go to tomorrow. Bed of roses, bed of nails. Turn it over, start again, hourglass. This one will pass, this one won't last. Turn it over, start again, hourglass. Turn it over, start again, hourglass. Start again, hourglass. Turn it over, hourglass.
Wow. I have a new favorite recovery song. That's excellent.
Oh,
Well,
cool. It's on my Bandcamp page if anyone wants to check it out. I have a little home studio and I love recording. Love doing it. So, and every now and then I actually do something with it.
it's great. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. This was tremendous. It was well worth the wait. I mean, we only wish we could have done it in person as we planned to do it last year, but thank you for being patient with us and just committing yourself so totally to it. Both your performances and what you had to say were wonderful. So maybe, hope to meet you again in person sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody feels like they wanted, I'm really accessible on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and I engage. I don't have a person doing it for me. So if you have a dying request for any questions, hit me up.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye, Kathy. Take care. And bye, everyone. Thanks so much. Mitchell and Margot, thank you. And till next time.
Thank you.